Hi everyone. So today we're going to talk about how to be a good parent. But before we start, if you enjoy topics like these or have other topics in life coaching or just how to enjoy your everyday life more, go ahead and click on the subscribe button below. Also, if you want to get notified when there are new videos, go ahead and click on the bell button. So, how to be a good parent. Now, these are general rules that can apply for any age of child, from young to teen, from even babies. Well, maybe not babies, but you know what I mean. So, the first really important principle about being a good parent is to realize that each child is very different. Those of you that have more than one child quickly realize that even from birth, each child acts very differently, has a different temperament, and different learning style. So to be a better parent, realize that the way you're going to teach and work with different children is going to be different based on their own unique personality and learning style. If you have a child that is very patient, you might be able to work with them or teach them or parent them through exercises that involve, very slow activities, very slow drawing. Whereas if you have a child or a teen that gets impatient quick, you might want to do something that's got more movement involved in order to parent or get through to them. When you reach conflict with your children, it's really important to model anger for your children, because if you're able to be angry mindfully, then you're also teaching your children how to be mindfully angry. Be prepared. Children don't do what we say, they do what we do. And so, if you're yelling at a child and telling them not to yell at you, you're actually teaching them the opposite of what you're saying. So, sometimes we hear parents say that, they don't need to hold themselves to the same standards as children because they're the adult. But in reality, children learn by imitation. They learn by watching you. They're very visual, particularly if you have a child that happens to be very visual on top of that. So really realize that children are doing what you do more than they're doing what you say. And so when you get angry, if you're screaming at them, if you're getting too loud, if you have a hard time controlling your own anger and temperament, chances are your child will pick up on all of your own problematics with anger. And so really realize that you're transmitting a lot of your own problems onto your children. And so the best way to teach your children to be better is to improve yourself and to communicate with them in a mindful way. So what do I mean by being mindfully angry? Well, if you're angry, first of all, really don't swear in front of your children if you can help it. If you don't want them to become, swearers, if you want them to learn how to communicate effectively, talk through your anger. Really pay attention to your body language and your visual cues. If you make a sour face, if you have a very aggressive posture when you're angry, if you scream very loudly, not only will these things intimidate the child and make them not able to express themselves back, you will also be teaching them to express themselves in a similar way when they're angry. Talk to your children a lot. Anyone knows, especially parents of boys, that sometimes talking with our children can feel one-sided. In the younger years they might want to play more. In the older years they might be more interested in talking to their friends than talking to you. But even if they're not talking back, try to initiate conversations. Ask them how they're doing. Find out about their day. Know who their friends are. Know where they're going. Talk to them even about small things. You'd be surprised sometimes how you might not even know something's on their mind, and then you ask them a question and it opens up a whole world of subjects and issues that you can communicate over and connect with your child. So try to talk to them as much as you can, and sometimes be prepared for the fact that, without realizing it, you might ask them something, or they might come to you when you're least expecting it and want to have a big, full conversation about a subject. So, be prepared to be surprised sometimes in your conversations with your children, and be lighthearted and flexible. Play with your children. If you can, try to find things that you like, but also find out what they like. The famous Carl Rogers used to play with children, or advocate for playing with your child 1 hour a day in order to connect with them. If you're not very playful by nature, or you have a limited schedule, even if it's 10 minutes of playtime or 10 minutes of bonding time, these 10 minutes will rest in their mind, will be something that really benefits and strengthens their connection to you. Another tip I want to say is really think about your own childhood, and think about the things that you disliked about your childhood, and try not to repeat the same mistakes with your own children. Of course, there are some things that we didn't like about our parents that are just a given of parenting, like setting boundaries or saying no. But there are other things that, if you can connect to remember what it was like for you being a child, try not to fall into the same patterns that your parents would do, of automatically saying no, or assuming that your child doesn't have the ability to critically think about what their preferences are. Give them the opportunity to show you who they are, and listen to who they are. Help children learn words to communicate their emotions. Oftentimes children still don't have, or even teens don't have, the vocabulary or the life experience to be able to put words to their emotions or their feelings. If you can listen to them and repeat back what you're hearing, perhaps with an extended vocabulary, with an extended definition of emotional language, you start giving them the words to be able to express how they feel. So for instance, if you're sitting down with your child or your teen, and they're saying that they had a really bad day, and you ask them to tell you about it, and they say, well, my friend said this to me, so I called them a jerk. One of the things that you could say back is, wow, it sounds like your feelings were hurt. It sounds like you felt betrayed, or your trust was betrayed. So giving them that language to start to understand their own emotions then allows them to have the language and the ability to discern what they're feeling into the future, and can really enhance all of their relationships and their ability to understand themselves. Talk about taboo subjects. I think particularly when you come from a different generation than your child, you're used to dealing with certain taboo subjects in a different way. Perhaps you grew up with parents that if you talked about taboo subjects like sex, for instance, that was considered even rude to talk about it with your parents. Well, I want to encourage you to do the opposite, to create a space where not only is it okay to talk about taboo subjects, but where your child now feels comfortable coming to you first, as opposed to going to a friend of their age, or to the internet, or to a stranger to talk about things that they're having difficulties with, or things they're struggling with. The moment they realize that you're not going to get upset, or that you actually have the life knowledge to share with them, and that they're not going to be judged or feel uncomfortable about talking about various subjects, then they'll include you more in their world, allow you in, and you can guide them so that they don't have to flop through certain issues, whether that's violence at school, or first sexual encounters, and really help them through the process. Talk about violence in media and video games. We live in an era where there's a lot of violence that children are exposed to, as well as a lot of sexuality and a lot of adult content. Even if you have restrictions on their video game access, their TV access, they just have a lot more possibility to be exposed to adult and more extreme content. So opening those subjects up, kind of finding out what they're exposed to is really, really important for their emotional health, because they are being thrown into more adult subject matter than perhaps you were at their age. And so being realistic about the fact that, you know, you might not be able to shield them completely, so it's better to have open conversations about it. And also talk to them, you know, define for them, you know, playing a game where you're walking around with an AK-47 and pretending to shoot people is actually constantly numbing your mind to violence. Give them the understanding that, you know, violence in games is still violence. It's still pretending to be violent. And now there is a place for those games because they do exist in our society. These are subjects that you're not going to be able to erase from their world. And so sometimes playing with it actually helps ease their tensions and their anxiety by allowing them to become familiar with it. But make sure to define for them the boundaries between game and reality. That if you take a real gun out and shoot people, people will die. It's not a game. So kind of giving them those boundaries to explore. Teach your children to say no. You know, we don't like it when our children say no to us because we want them to do everything that we say, but actually a child that knows how to say it is a sign of health, because that means that then when they go into the world and they find themselves in situations where people are trying to push them to do things that are not good for them, they have the ego strength to say no. So you don't want a child who obediently says yes and does everything you say. You want a child that's able to express no, but just knows how to do it respectfully and in a healthy manner. So encourage your children to question and to say when something doesn't make sense to them. Don't shut off their ability to set boundaries. At the same time, encourage them to try new things. This is going to be one of the hardest things with a lot of kids. A lot of kids are afraid to try new things or don't want to try something new, whereas other kids are playful and more exploratory. It might be hard if they have anxiety or if they are shy to get them to try new things, and it's going to take some strength on your part to kind of cajole them into it. But one of the ways you can do it is set a rule in the house where we always try something new. We always take a bite out of a new food. We always try a new activity for 10 minutes before we judge it. So really making that part of your family culture is really not only healthy for your children, but prepares them for the outside world. Show your children affection daily, whether it is verbal or physical, or by doing small things for them. Children need you to show love because they don't always know that you love them, even though you know that you love them. They're sometimes vulnerable. They sometimes go to school, and in school they don't always feel good about themselves. So it's important that they feel your affection on a daily basis. And finally, although there's so many more things that we can talk about, I'm going to leave you with this last tip is if you have a conflict with your child or fight with them, really try and close that fight within the day. It's good to sometimes take distance, sit on it, give them time. But remember, you are the most important person in your child's life. And if they really feel like you're angry with them, it can make them feel all off kilter or unsteady. So, coming back towards your child and having a conversation about what happened, letting them know that even if you might be frustrated with them, angry with them, or even maybe you've punished them and set some discipline, that you still love them, that you can be in conflict and still feel affection, they are still safe, they're still supported, even through conflict. It's really important to kind of, close the argument, come to some new ideas together, and even express affection through conflict or through a disciplinary action so that the child still feels accepted and loved, even though they're being told that they need to do something differently. If you've liked this subject, and also if you've got parenting tips to share with me or with other people watching this channel, please do comment in the comments section and share your parenting tips and things that have worked for you, as well as subscribe by clicking on the subscribe button. If you like this type of content or other life coaching type videos, as well as nutrition and health videos, you can also click on the notification bell to be notified. Have a blessed day, and I look forward to talking to you soon.